Hello, thanks for checking out my video and welcome to my channel where we talk all about koi ponds and waterfalls, water gardens, fish, aquatic plants, pond filtration, all that good stuff. Today's video we are talking specifically about adding or introducing new fish into your pond. If you have a pond already existing and you have fish in it and you want to add a couple more fish, or it's a brand new pond and you're putting fish into it for the first time, we're going to look at some things that you need to be aware of. We're going to look at how to put those fish into the pond, how to acclimate them into your water, and all around just some good practices and things to be aware of when purchasing fish. Okay? So let's get started right off the bat. Whenever you're adding fish to a pond, new pond or older pond, all right, there's always some risk involved with what you may be bringing in with that fish and introducing into your pond. What kind of pathogens that fish may be carrying, bacteria, parasites, fungi. There's all kinds of different things that we need to be aware of and cautious of, okay? Where you buy your fish is important. You know, in this world, I see two types of koi buyers, okay? The koi enthusiast, it's a big hobby. They're really into their ponds. They love their fish. You know, they go to extremes in taking care of them, protecting them, feeding them, okay, all that. And that's awesome, okay? Then there's everybody else. The people who have a pond, put some fish in it, and, you know, take care of it and care, but they kind of just go with it, okay? Now, many people who are buying koi, or any kind of fish for that matter, you know, go to their local pond supply shop, local pet shop, maybe a garden center that sells pond products, and, you know, they buy fish. And, you know, they go there, they pick out their fish, they get bagged up, they bring them home, they put them in their pond, okay? Sometimes, that's all well and good, okay? Sometimes it's not so good, and we end up with a lot of problems in our pond with fish that are sick, okay? So, the koi hobbyist, all right, is going to buy their fish from a really reputable dealer who they know takes care of their fish, cares about the fish, medicates their fish, quarantines their fish, okay? So that when you bring a fish home and add it to your pond, it's clean and safe, all right? Koi can be very expensive, right? You know, thousands of dollars sometimes for a fish. And if you have a pond and just say you have $20,000 worth of fish in that pond, you don't want to go out and buy a fish for $50 and throw it in there and half of your other fish die, okay? So we really need to be cautious and careful about where we're buying our fish and how we're introducing them into your pond. So that's what I'm trying to help you out with a little bit today. All right, we need to go to a reputable dealer, all right, to buy not only a quality fish but a clean and healthy fish. All right, many pet shops, many places that sell fish sell them in mass quantities, and God knows what's going through their tanks, okay? We need to be careful about that. There's a lot to think about. I've seen places that sell fish that have, you know, 10 tanks set up, all connected to one filter system. all right? If there's a problem in one of those tanks, or a couple fish in one of those tanks has a parasite, that parasite can spread through all 10 of those tanks because it's all being circulated through the same system. Just something to be aware of when you go fish shopping, okay? Years ago, I went to a class on koi health, and we did scrapings on the fish, the scales, and put it on microscope slides, and looked at those slides in the microscope to look for protozoan parasites. The place where we were doing the seminar at had gone out to a local, big chain pet shop and bought a whole bunch of goldfish for us to use in our class. And let me tell you, we found every parasite in the books on these fish. Okay, and these were all fish that were being sold at a big pet shop. Okay, so that comes home and that goes into your pond, and your fish, big problems. All right, big problems. So always look for a reputable dealer, or a seller that knows what they're doing and knows about the fish and understands how to keep fish healthy. Okay. Some places I've heard koi dealers that you go to the store, you buy your fish, you don't take them home with you, okay? After you buy those fish, they quarantine them for a period of time where they're treated either with salt or a chemical to kill any type of pathogens that may be with those fish. And then a couple weeks later, they'll call you and say, hey, your fish is ready to be picked up. And then you bring it home. Some big koi hobbyists and enthusiasts actually will buy their fish, bring them home, and have their own holding tanks, quarantine tanks, and quarantine those fish and treat them and medicate them in their own tanks before they put them in their pond. Okay. Koi ponds can be a really big investment. Okay, so whether you have a big, beautiful, $50,000 pond with, $10,000 worth of koi in it, or you have just your garden pond that you built yourself and you take pride in that, and, maybe you have, $75 worth of fish in there, whatever, right? They're your pets. They become your pets. You don't want to see them all die, right? And having to treat them for bacterial infections and parasites and stuff can be a real pain, and it can be costly, right? And it's not something you want to do. If you have a pond that's well established and it's been established and you have no problems, I don't want to put any more fish in it. All right? I hear my clients that say, I just want to buy a couple more new fish this year. And I'm like, why? Your pond is great. You have no problems. Everything is happy and healthy. Yeah, Now, I'm not saying that every time you buy a fish and you bring it in your pond, everything's going to get sick and die. Okay, I'm not saying that. But there is a risk. Okay, there is a chance. All right. My wife's a chemistry teacher. Okay, every year, the start of school in September, she's got a whole classroom full of, 25 kids, right? Everybody seems happy and healthy. One little kid's got sniffles. All of a sudden, next week, there's 6, 7 kids in her class out sick, okay? Everybody's immune system is different, and everybody's carrying some kind of germs. Everybody, all right? But who's susceptible to those germs, okay, really varies. And, and it depends on your stress level, right? Maybe a lack of sleep. Maybe you're not eating well, all right? Things like that can make you more susceptible to those germs. And fish are the same way, especially when you're buying them, right? They're in a tank. You're catching them in a net. You're throwing them in a bag. You're carrying them home. You're putting them into a new pond. It stresses the fish, okay, they become more susceptible to parasites and stuff. So it's just, be aware of all this. Another thing is, I had a client tell me, oh, I went to the store and they sold koi there and they're beautiful fish, but the guy wants like $1,000 a piece for these fish. He's like, that's crazy. What if you bring one of them home and it dies? All right. Well, here's my thing with that. Okay. First of all, if you're going to spend $1,000 or more on fish, you're obviously going to know what you're doing, right? You're going to know about your pond. You're going to know your water quality. You're going to know how to take care of those fish. You know about it. At this point, you're adding something special, a unique piece into your pond that you're going to be proud of and enjoy having, okay? It's not, that, oh, they're crazy. They want $1,000 for the fish. What are they, nuts? No, koi can get really expensive, all right? And there's a lot of different reasons for their cost, but that's a whole nother video. But, my point is, if you're spending that kind of money or more on a fish, you're going to know what you're doing. I have a client, I was at his house one day, and he says to me, yeah, I think I'm going to get down to the, pond place. I'm thinking about buying a couple fish, right? He comes back with 2 fish. He spent $5,000. Okay, they're beautiful. He had a beautiful Shiro Atsuri and a big Kohaku. Beautiful. They're his prized possessions in his pond, okay? So when you have a pond like this, right, with these big, beautiful fish in it, you really need to be careful what you're bringing in with it, okay? Because we don't want those fish to die. Now, the funny thing about that statement as far as, this place selling fish for $1,000 and what if it dies, okay? My thought on that was flipped, okay? It's not that fish that you need to be worried about dying when you bring it into your pond. Yeah, you just spent $1,000 on that fish and you don't want it to die, absolutely. But it's also what you're bringing in with it that could hurt all your other fish, okay? So whether it's a $10 fish or a $1,000 fish, okay, you need to be cautious, okay? Keep all this stuff in mind. It's really critical. Another thing that I get a lot of times is clients and customers who say to me, oh, if you know anybody that, wants to sell some of their fish, I'm looking for fish. Or, vice versa, if you know anybody that wants fish, I got a whole bunch in here, I'd be willing to get rid of some of them. I stay out of it. Okay, I can appreciate, what they want to do, and absolutely, okay, but for me, I want to stay out of it, okay, because I become the middleman. I become the guy that says, hey, I have a client that wants to get rid of some fish, and you need fish. Do you want... Because if I bring fish from that house and put them in that pond, and there's a problem, who are they going to turn to? They don't turn to that guy. They don't know him. They know me. You brought those fish in here. Now all my fish are dead. It's never happened, okay, because I avoid it. If client A wants to buy fish from client B, client A can call client B, and client A can go to client B's house and pick up those fish and bring them back to his pond and put them in, and I'm nothing to do with it. Okay? It's just I got enough to worry about. I got enough stuff going on. But things like that happen where, you never know. All right? Especially when you're just taking fish out of one pond and throwing it into another. All right? Now, I've had clients that go fishing, in the lake, in the pond back behind their house, a natural pond, and they catch a big bass, or they catch some sunnies or blue catfish or something. Hey, can I bring that fish and throw it in my pond? Oh, man. No. You don't know what you're bringing in, okay? Oh, God knows. And The same holds true for water plants. When you buy water plants, you can be bringing stuff in with it. Okay, not only, you know, parasites, funguses, bacteria, stuff like that. I've had people bring in a plant, and then like weeks later, they've got 100 little fish swimming around. All right, I had one client of mine who this happened to, and he says, "Oh, I have baby koi in my pond." And I go over there and I'm looking at those fish. I'm saying, they're not koi. They were little minnows, like little shiner minnows. How they got in the pond, I don't know. He says, how can they not be from my koi? I don't have any other fish. All I have is koi. Yeah, but you bought all those plants and you brought some eggs and stuff in with it. Now he's got overrun with like 100 little minnows all in the pond. Okay, it happens. Water plants too. I've had people say, "Oh my gosh, I want to buy some water lilies, but the local garden centers are nuts. They want, you know, $40, $50 a piece for them." I'm not doing that. There's a lake back down the street from my house and they're growing. I'm just going to go down there and pull some lilies out and bring them into my pond. Oh boy. All right. So you're going to go into a natural pond, and all these lilies are growing along the bank, right, in this stale, stagnant water where there's all kinds of leaves and vegetation rotting and decaying in this pond. And you're going to dig up this mud, God knows what kind of things you're going to be digging up and bringing it into your pond with you. So you save $40 on a lily, but you might kill $400 worth of fish. Or more. All right, so we got to be really careful with all this stuff. Okay, so now we kind of covered all that stuff. Let's get back to how do we introduce the fish into our pond. We go to the pet shop, we go to the garden center, we go to the koi dealer, the pond supplier, whatever. We pick out our fish. They bag them up. They give them to us, we bring them home. I had a customer years ago that complained because they bought some fish. They put the fish in a box in the trunk of the car, and on the way home, they stopped at a restaurant for lunch. Now, you know, it was only 85, 90 degrees out that day. And when they got home, they took the box out of the trunk and all the fish were dead. And they were fuming and ready to run back to the store and, you know, raise hell because the fish that they just sold them are all dead. They went to, they had lunch. They were sitting in the car, in the trunk, in a hot summer day for probably over an hour. And by the time they got home, it had to be over an hour. Okay? Buy your fish, get them home. Okay? Right away. The sooner you get them to the new pond, the better. All right? Now, what you want to do is you want to open up the bag. Okay? The bag is going to be probably 1/3 to 1/4 water, and the rest all air. Okay? The oxygen is really important for them in these bags. Okay? When you get home, you want to take the rubber bands off, open up the bags. We want to roll the bag down, and we want to float it on the side edge of our pond in the water for a little while. Okay? So the whole idea here, what we want to call acclimating the fish to your pond, is basically we want to adjust the water temperature. Okay, and we want to adjust any like chemical qualities in the pond, pH and stuff like this. Okay, so we want to get the fish gradually used to the water in your pond compared to the water they're coming from. All right, now there's a very important thing here that I want you to take note of and know. Okay, and that is you should never put the water from the bag into your pond. okay? So as that bag is floating here on the edge of the pond, I don't like, just me, I don't like leaving that bag floating for too long, all right? I don't want to sit there for a half hour. Those fish need oxygen, okay? I don't know how much oxygen is in that water at this point. And if it's really hot out, okay, it can really be stressful. So I want to do this acclimating as quickly as possible, okay? But, you know, don't just come home and dump the fish in the pond. We never want to put the water from the bag into our pond because, again, you never know what you're dumping in with it, okay? So we want to adjust the water quality and we want to adjust the temperature. Temperature is not always that big of a deal. If you're buying your pond fish from a place that has their pond fish tanks outside, chances are the temperature of their water is going to be the same as the temperature in your water. Okay? So that's usually pretty close. Now, what we want to do is once that bag is opened up and the sides are rolled down and it's kind of floating there on the surface, I take 2 plastic cups, all right? 2 plastic cups. 1 cup I'm going to use to take a scoop of water out of the bag and dump it outside my pond. The other cup, I'm going to take a scoop of water from my pond and put it into the bag. So I'm going to do that a few times, just a couple minutes in between. We're going to do that. Take a scoop of water out of the bag, dump it outside the pond, take a scoop of water from the pond, dump it in the bag. We're going to do that several times. That's going to help to dilute the 2 waters together and bring some of your pond water into the bag of water that the fish is in. Kind of acclimate them, okay? When we do that several times, I just kind of in my head try to do it enough that I can say I've replaced the water in the bag and put the water of the pond into it, okay? Once that's done, all right, now I use 2 cups, right? Because I don't want to take 1 cup and dump it in the bag, dump my water out, and then take that same cup and dump it in my pond. I don't want anything from that bag to get on my cup that I'm putting into the pond. Now, when it comes time to taking the fish out, we don't want to dump that bag of water into our pond, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to put our hand in our pond water, get our hand wet, all right? Then we're going to slowly just put our hand in the bag, scoop under the fish, and just lift them up over the edge of the bag and drop them into our pond. At that point, we can take our empty bag out and dump that water outside the pond. Okay? That's how I do it. I've always been successful about it. There's probably different things and different ways and whatever, but for me, that's what I've always done, and I've never had a problem. It works. Everything's good. Okay? So that ought to give you a really good idea here as far as introducing new fish into a new pond or an older pond. If you're putting fish into your pond for the first time, a brand new pond, all right, we don't want to go out and buy 100 fish and throw it in the pond. All right, your pond needs to cycle, and what that means is there's a whole process called the nitrogen cycle, of which bacteria grows in your filter system, and the bacteria does a chemical process that changes ammonia into nitrites and nitrites into nitrates. Now, if you don't know what this is, please check out my video on the nitrogen cycle. I'll explain all that. But in a new pond, we need to cycle it, okay? What's called cycle, and it's basically balance itself out chemically. By adding a ton of fish in all at once, we're going to be producing a lot of ammonia. And if we don't have the bacteria set up in our filters to eliminate this ammonia, the ammonia levels can grow really high, and it can become toxic and really hurt the fish. So, We need to build this ammonia level up slowly, okay? So it's kind of a catch-22. If you put 3 little fish in, they're not going to produce enough ammonia right away to really seed this filter with bacteria, okay? So we got to kind of get it in between, okay, where we have enough fish, but we can handle, you know, the amount of ammonia that's being produced. You know, once the pond is cycled, you can add more fish, but you never want to dump in, you know, an overwhelming amount of fish at once. All right. One other last thought. Buying your fish now is possible on the internet. Okay, there are a lot of online retailers that sell koi, and you know, from what I have seen so far, I've had a few customers do this, and they've not had a problem, and they've gotten some nice fish. You actually can see pictures of them online and pick out the fish you want, and they have the pricing. And once you buy the fish, they actually ship it overnight, and you know, it arrives on your doorstep the next day. You know, just again, be careful where you're buying fish from. Man, when you're buying online, you've got no clue where it's coming from. So we really need to find a reputable place if you're doing that, okay? So that pretty much wraps it up. I hope it kind of gave you a good idea of, you know, what to be aware of, what to do, what not to do. There's you know, fish are important. They become your pets, you know. They're the life, they're the living things in your pond that, you know, provide so much interest and enjoyment. So we really need to be protectors for them and take care of them and provide them with a healthy and safe environment. Okay? So, you know, buying your fish, where you buy them, where you get them from is really important. Okay? So thanks for watching. I really appreciate your time. Please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and I appreciate the support. You know, I have a ton of videos here on this channel on a number of topics that hopefully can really help you guys out and answer a lot of questions for you. So whether you are just beginning in the pond hobby, or you know, you have a pond and you want to learn more about it, please check out the videos. I have a lot here for you. All right. So thank you very much. Hopefully we'll see you back again in another video. Take care. Have a great day. Bye.